Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Good morning and welcome to the show. A little later on, we're going to be sitting down with Bruce Christensen of the North Peace Fall Fair Society. It's the 75th anniversary of the fair this year, so we're going to talk about what they have planned for the celebration, as well as hear his take on this permitting issue they're having with the PRRD over a building on the fairgrounds. But first, there's always plenty to chat about in local and provincial politics, and our MLA has been busy in the news recently, writing letters to the Electoral Boundaries Commission and the Ministers of Jobs and Transport. They have longer names, I won't say them now, but to chat a bit about those letters and so much more, we're joined live in studio for the first time in years with Peace River North MLA Dan Davies. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here, and years, yeah. 2 years, it's crazy.
You were commenting on how much things have changed inside here, even since the last time you were here.
Yeah, so. You know, I'm in town right now. The legislature is sitting this week, but I'm in town for the Local Government Association meeting, and it was just great to see people, colleagues and friends that haven't seen in a few years.
Right.
So that was the conversation. From there's 500 attendees at the conference. So it's good to be out and good to be connecting with people. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
But you're talking about my two letters.
Yeah. Well, actually, first, since you brought it up, I do want to talk about something that happened, I think, yesterday at the conference. Speaking of it, the Taylor Bridge, of course, came up, which isn't a surprise. It was bound to come up eventually. Yeah. I guess you guys had Minister Fleming on a Zoom call that Mayor Laurie Ackerman was sort of moderating. The bridge came up. It said, hey, what are you guys doing about it, basically? He gave a long-winded politician's response about how important it is to the region, yada, yada. Yeah. I wonder what you make of what the minister said, if you heard anything of interesting from it.
No, it was a big nothing sandwich. Yeah. And we've been hearing it since 2017, and it's been the same response, and the responses are getting more elaborate to say we're looking at it deeper. We're consulting, we're working with, XYZ. And, we're in budget debate right now, have been for the last number of weeks and will be for the next few weeks. Ministry of Transportation's coming up. I will be asking him questions again, but it's not in the budget. It's not even in the long-term capital plan. Mm-hmm. And until I see it in there, it's just talk. And that is, I'm not going to stop my advocacy for getting that Taylor Bridge. And I think looking at Mayor Fraser had a great, his analogy was, we don't just need to look at the Taylor Bridge. We need to look at that whole Peace Valley corridor. And what does that look like in improving it from the top of the South Taylor Hill to the top of the North Taylor Hill? Mm-hmm. And absolutely agree with him, and that's what I will be advocating for, continuing to advocate for that.
I think it was Mayor Fraser who said, and I don't remember when it was specifically, but he said something interesting. He said, and this was in the fall or earlier this year, that he figured that there may have been room in the budget a year like this year if the flooding hadn't happened kind of late in the fall, and that sort of maybe pushed something like this back. Do you think that's true, or do you think the government, for whatever reason, just continues to drag their heels on doing something about this?
Well, it was interesting. Minister Fleming actually brought up that anticipated question right there. Nobody asked it, but at the very end in his closing remarks, he said, just to let everybody know, with all the damage on Highway 1, the Coquihalla and others, and the billions, capital B, billions of dollars that they've spent on getting those routes open, and the billions yet to come to get them back up to normal. He said that would not affect the capital spending in the province, which I find hard to believe. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at that amount, and granted, there's a lot of federal money that is also going to be coming, but it is going to cost the BC taxpayer a huge whack of money.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at, of course, the budget, they've worked in a $5 billion deficit this year. There should have been money, some serious money, because, it's not that they're going to be, wham with this amount of money to build the bridge. I mean, there's a lot of work up front, the engineering, getting, all that stuff in place. So they need to get it on the books. They need to start that pre-work to lead up to it. Things aren't getting cheaper as well. So I think on a project that's going to be $500 or $600 million, which is probably in the area that it will be, they need to start doing some of that, procuring some of that work right now to save the taxpayer money in the long run, because the bridge does need to be done. The government said that. So get on it now.
All right. Well, we could talk about this all day, but I do want to move on to the Electoral Boundaries Commission.
Yeah.
This is one of those ones where I don't even really know where to begin here, because they said we're going to have a meeting in Dawson Creek. They've made a second meeting now at a more reasonable time. We'll talk about that in a second too. We're going to have a meeting in Fort Nelson to talk about the proposed changes that could be happening and hear residents' feedbacks. They chose not to have a meeting in the largest city in the Peace region. I mean, do you have any sense from them?
So,
did they give you a reason as to why they chose what they did?
No, they did not. I think I CC'd your news department on the letters that I wrote to the commission. I think 4 in total, back and forth. Initially, who holds a town hall meeting at 8:30 in the morning? First of all, up here, people are working. Now you got to take a day off work. And then 5 hours later, you're up in Fort Nelson, missing the largest municipality north of Prince George. So I wrote that. They wrote back and said, thank you, we'll get you on the next round of input, which is actually the post-report input. So it's not really gathering input anymore. Then they did the second meeting in Dawson Creek on the Monday night, this coming Monday night, and basically stated because of the overwhelming response in Dawson Creek, we've added on another meeting, and that's why. And I questioned that. And they tell me that's why they're doing it, because the overwhelming response. Well, that overwhelming response, the majority of those people are driving from Fort St. John. So put your Monday night meeting then in Fort St. John, and solve everyone's issues. But basically, the final note that I got from the commission was, "Thank you for your concern." So. There's no change in it, but this is absolutely one of the most critical things, I think, right now, facing the Peace Country, facing the interior of BC and the north of BC, is the likelihood that the government brought in a new piece of legislation last year to remove the rural protection out of the electoral boundary line drawing, basically. So it's based on one MLA equals this number of people. And, the argument was years ago when the protection was brought in was, my colleagues in Vancouver, full respect for what they do, but they don't have a provincial road in their riding. Most don't have a school. Most don't have a hospital. They don't deal with agriculture. They don't deal with hunting issues. They don't deal with mining. They don't deal with oil and gas. You name the list of the provincial issue. They don't deal with it. They have the social issues, absolutely, but so do I as well. So does Mike Bernier as well. I mean, we deal with the same social issues. I mean, let's look at the opioid crisis. I mean, the Northeast is the highest per capita death rate in the opioid crisis. So we're dealing with those issues, plus every other issue, plus over 175,000 square kilometers in my riding alone, which is the size of, 3 small European countries. My colleagues in Vancouver cover 10 blocks. So it's our argument is, you are now taking away representation from rural BC, giving us less voice in the legislature in Victoria, which we're already fighting like hell for, to make sure that we have that voice to represent us here in Victoria, in the legislature. So it's a huge challenge. We need to make sure, and all the listeners, to go to either the Monday night session or the Monday morning session. They did add the second one on. It is busy. You have to register. You can check out my Facebook page. You can go to the BC Electoral Boundary Commission page. But you have to email info@BC Electoral Boundary Commission.ca. It's the acronym of that, to get on the list. And you have up to 10 minutes to speak. Talk about the uniqueness of the riding. The commissioners need to hear the uniqueness of the riding. They actually, in their very first letter, Dub, back to me, was saying, a part of the reasoning why they did it where they were is the challenge is to get around in rural BC. The other thing is they've also got a private jet because of the challenges to get around rural BC. Everywhere else they've been using commercial, but you can't do that up here in the north. So, I'm really hopeful. This is really important. The commissioners are listening. They have the ability to make decisions outside of the one MLA to the ratio of people, 60,000 people. But they need to hear from people. They need to hear the concern of people. They need to hear and see the whites of people's eyes. That's why it's important to have a town hall that we have 200 people in the audience looking at them. And I want to make sure and reach out to my office here in Fort St. John. We'll set you up with the information.
All right. I want to move on to the rail car shortage, kind of another issue that you've been talking about in letters lately. This one's a bit tougher because there's some kind of federal provincial overlap or kind of butting up of who's what jurisdiction, in the Crown Corporation with CN Rail or whatnot. But there's a shortage, and that has, in your mind, led to a lot of the situations where we have curtailments at the Taylor Pulp Mill, for example, and whatnot. You said you sent a letter essentially to the BC counterparts to tell their federal counterparts to do something about that. Is that really all the provincial government can do in this situation?
Yeah, I did CC the federal ministers as well to make sure that they were in the loop. And, look, this isn't a new issue.
Yeah.
I've been working with the forest industry, the grain producers up here, the town of Fort Nelson, who's also struggling to get guarantees on rail. This has been an issue that's been going on for a few years. It's getting worse. Well, it's ridiculous right now. Then you add on, of course, some of the infrastructure issues that happened during the flooding last fall. China now is on a lockdown. You've got port issues, shipping issues. You got, like you say, there's a lot of things at play. But again, this isn't new. And CN, which is it's that rail is federally regulated, and that's where the federal government comes in and CN to pressure them to, because they prioritize a lot on the main line, and the rest of BC, good luck. And that's kind of what we're feeling. And we've seen, Fiberco's biggest challenge right now is they can't move product. Louisiana Pacific here in town, just drive by their yard. The road's full of product, their parking lot's full of product. They got more product outside than they do inside because they can't move the product. Our grain producers, forcing our farmers to drive to Alberta to move their grain because the elevator here can't get cars. The whole economic recovery of Fort Nelson is based on guaranteed to make sure that rail line. And we cannot get those commitments from CN. And interestingly enough, and I didn't send the letter to CN, but CN reached out to me here just this week and wants to set up a meeting. So I'm going to be very clear, and I've met with them before, and they kind of do the same responses every time. Yes, we understand. Here's the challenges, blah, 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 and we'll do better. But they're not. And that is what we need to have up here. We need better rail. We need better guarantees because it's impacting my community. It's impacting your community as people are getting laid off. And it's not just people at Fiberco. You look at the spin-offs now that happens. We're talking hundreds of people that are being impacted as these mills curtail. And I don't want Louisiana Pacific to be next. I don't want, our grain elevator that, we worked hard for, a number of years ago to make sure we had a grain elevator here because, it's convenient for farmers, easier for farmers. I don't want that to shut down. And CN plays an integral part of that. And again, that's what I'm advocating for right now is to get recognized up here. And this is not an issue up here, by the way. Again, just being here at the Local Government Association, I'm hearing from other communities in rural BC. They're facing some similar challenges.
Issue in general then. Okay.
Yeah.
A couple more minutes here, Dan. So I want to quickly talk a bit about your portfolio, social development and poverty reduction. You're the opposition critic for that. I think in general, we've seen it all, right? Gas prices gone up. That's the big one. Of course, the price of food going up. That's hitting people experiencing poverty the most because they have to eat. They have to drive their cars to work, especially if you're up here in a rural place like the Peace. What are you advocating for the government to do about a situation like that where gas prices are higher, food prices are higher? What are you expecting the government to do?
Well, and poverty is an issue here in Fort St. John, throughout this region, throughout the province. And what we've seen certainly in the last couple of years is the affordability it's beyond reach now. Whether we're talking gas prices, whether you're talking housing, like even housing here, rentals, groceries. Go to the grocery store. You can't afford, to buy groceries anymore. You're choosing between groceries and utility bills right now. And there was a lot of people that were in the middle income bracket, maybe on the low end, that are now being pushed down into, being, $200 a month away from insolvency. And this is across the province of BC. There are a massive number of people that are in right on the verge of being pushed out of a house, being pushed onto the streets. And this is a huge issue. And the chain reaction that this will cause on our social infrastructure, our healthcare system is going to be bombarded. I spoke briefly about the opioid drug crisis in the province, mental health issues that come with it. It costs every British Columbian when these things happen. So we've been really focusing on, myself and my caucus colleagues have been focusing on the affordability piece, because that impacts certainly the low income earners in the province of BC, but it has just as a devastating impact on the middle income earners, which is the majority of the province. And we need to start looking at ways that we can curtail that, to push it off, to get our inflation rate in check. And, our federal government isn't doing us any favors either. But we need to start looking at how to, what we've seen the resource sector in this province leave, whether it's oil and gas, forestry, mining, you name it. Those are huge revenue generating pieces for the province of BC. That's being taken out. That they're going next door, they're going down south of the border. So when you start seeing that revenue leave, it leaves our present government nowhere else to turn but looking at ways that they can make up that money that's being lost through taxation, increase in fees and services. And we've seen that. And that starts all pushing down to people and increasing that affordability. And we're seeing that. Gas, the gas prices. I mean, I drive a diesel truck and it's $2.20 now. I'm thinking of walking more. And that's me. 50% of that is taxes. And we've been asking, let's look to our neighbors. You can do some relief. The government can sign today and do some immediate relief to help people out in the pocketbooks. And they're not. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're trying to, promote the resource sector, which British Columbia is very blessed with, and we do it right. We're very environmental. Well, let's embrace that. We're in a world energy crisis right now. The opportunity is right now, which in turn is going to increase the revenues, which in turn is going to, help support all the programs and things that we all want. We all want good healthcare. God knows up here, we need improvement. Education, those are the things we need. We need to improve our roads. We need a Taylor Bridge, but that is not going to happen all based on the taxpayers' back. We need to make sure that we are embracing and promoting our resource sector. And right now, our NDP government, they're absent completely on doing that. And those are the big pieces that we're really trying to push. Myself as my critic within social development and poverty reduction, but all of us on the affordability issue are pushing that same thing because it's out of control right now.
All right, Dan. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. But I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today in person.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And again, just make sure you get out to the Boundary Commission Monday, Tuesday night this week. It's critically important. Or if you happen to be up in Fort Nelson, it's Tuesday night.
All right. That's Dan Davies, the Peace River North MLA. Welcome back to the show. Well, as I said earlier, it is the 75th anniversary of the North Peace Fall Fair this year. How exciting. They've announced the dates of when it's going to be happening, and they've been having a little bit of a permitting issue with the PRRD, which suddenly popped up this year, so it's kind of been in the news a bit in the last few months. So to talk about that and the 75th anniversary of the fair, we're joined by the North Peace Fall Fair Society President, Bruce Christensen. Bruce, welcome to Moose Talks.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here today. I want to start with this permitting thing with the PRRD. Now, as I understand it, it has to do with the Adeline Kelly building. You guys wanted to add on to it or make some sort of renovation to it. And then suddenly this issue came up with it. Can you kind of explain it in brief, what sort of happened?
Absolutely. And that is exactly right. I want to preface any comments I make this morning, though, the fact that we are not at war with the regional district.
Sure.
There's an understanding, and I think there's maybe a misunderstanding that needs to happen. But I'm going to go back to the first in 2014, and I refer to it as we, even though I wasn't part of the committee at that particular time.
Sure.
We received some funds that we could put up a building. Before we started, we felt it was important that we go and get a building permit, even though permits are not required in that part of our province. So the building inspector at the time was approached to authorize a building permit. He told us we didn't need one. We said we wanted one, and he said, why do you want one? And we said, because the type of building we're putting up, and it was explained to him the type of building was a building to replace 2 display buildings, which were very old, and we felt we could certainly improve on that for the people visiting the fair and the people that do participate. And as well, we wanted to improve the usability of the grounds by making this facilities building one that could be used for weddings and reunions and funerals and whatever. So, and understand that, I'm going to say we again, the people applying for this, had never applied for a permit before, did not know the permitting process.
Yeah.
The permit was then issued. Now, it was said in the paper by a member of staff of the regional district that we applied for a permit for an F2 building. We did not know what an F2 building, a K2 or a J2 building, none of that was ever explained what that in fact was. We had explained to them the fact that we needed to replace a display building, that we wanted to expand the use of the grounds, improve the experience you would have when you attended the fair and or whatever. And so the permit was given. We took the permit out. We were very happy. We put it in the window that we have a building permit to put this building up, and we put it up. The building has been used for 8 years. Has never been an issue. It's a very well-built building. We have a beautiful cement floor in there. You can dance on that floor. We try to keep it so clean you could probably almost eat off that floor. We felt over the last few years that our kitchen, because our kitchen, the stove in the kitchen is getting very old and the building itself is very old, that we should probably build a new kitchen. And what better place to put it than attach it to the Kelly building, the Adeline Kelly building. So I went to the building inspector and I said, this is what we're thinking of doing. What do we need to do? His concern at the time was snow load on the building. That was all that was mentioned to me at that time. I said, why are we concerned about snow load? This building is not used in the wintertime. If it was in late fall and there was a snowy day, we wouldn't be there. It would be the function would be canceled. Irregardless, he wanted to know that. So we got a hold of the building contractor, Goodon Industries, and they supplied us with drawings showing the structure of the building. And then I was told, well, we have those drawings on file. So then it became an issue that we can't issue the permit until you bring this building up to an A2 standard, which is an assembly building. We said, okay, what do we have to do? And then we're told you can't do that. So we have been told that we have to knock the building down and start over. Well, we don't have the funds. We do not have the funds to do that. We feel I have personally dealt with members of the regional district through COVID times, because the buildings were used when COVID was minimal, if I can use that term. We had to identify the amount of people that could be in the buildings. I was told, and I have an email saying that this is how many people you could have in the Kelly building, which was 50 people. Now we're told we can't have any more than about 7 people in the building. So it's confusing, it's frustrating, and the building contractor, which was Goodon Industries, are in communication with the building inspector trying to, what can we do to make this building work? I have reached out to a local construction company to say, if this building was built with a cement foundation and all the things which you would need in the city, what might it cost us? About $220 a square foot. Now that building becomes a $750,000 building, we don't have the revenue out there to justify. We just don't, and the usage, and I don't see it happening. We're too far from town. So right now, we're sitting at a building which is locked. We are not supposed to go into it. If we want to make it, they say you could use it as a storage building. We don't have enough things out there to store in your office here, let alone in the building that's 45 by 76. If we somehow could make it into an A2 building for assembly only, we have to modify it so that it cannot be used as an assembly building. We have to put in lighting, night lighting. We have to have security lighting, as in case somebody breaks in and hurts themselves. We don't use the building after dark. We don't use the building basically from the 1st of November, maybe the 15th of October through till June. The building is not used. None of the buildings are. We do maintenance in the summertime. So that's where we are. Now, it was reported in the, like I say once again, and I'm going to repeat this, in the newspaper that we applied for a permit for an A2 building. We did not apply for a permit, as I just explained to you. We didn't know, this numerical system that they have. We didn't know what it was. We wanted an assembly building and a facilities building, which would allow us to facilitate weddings, reunions, funerals, maybe, like the beef cattle, people have their conferences and that type of thing. So we have another presentation to the regional district on the June 9th meeting, of which time we're going to lay out some options. We're trying to come up with different options that will suit our needs, obviously, because that's what we're there for, but more importantly, suit the needs of the community, the greater community. By no means do we want to put up an unsafe building. By no means do we want to put somebody into a building that's not safe. But it's been used for 8 years. These buildings are all over the province. They're all over the country. There's buildings, similar buildings within the city of Fort St. John. And ours can't be used.
Is there an impact it may have on the festival if you can't use it, if it has to be locked, if if this kind of continues in through the fall to the time of the fair, or to later in the summer during the time of the fair? Is that a concern of yours?
It is. Yeah. It is. Right now, as we sit today, we have been in conversation with a local entrepreneur who will supply us with a large tent to be set up on the ground. It's not a cement floor. It's going to be a dirt floor at quite a cost. And he's given us a deal. But regardless, that cost, to add that cost to the overall cost of running the fair, we're going to have a good year. And we've had 4 bad years with COVID, with two flood years and a WASP year. So our revenue is down.
Okay. Well, if we can look on the bright side for a few moments anyway, I mean, it is the 75th anniversary of the fair this year. I have to ask, with kind of this going on, have you guys been able to sort of plan for maybe kind of special activities because it's such kind of an enormous year for that? Do you have kind of anything in mind that you might be doing this year?
We have some things in mind, but if I told you, I'd have to kill you. No.
Fair enough.
No, it is the 75th, and we are really looking forward to the 75th. We have a few ideas planned, recognition of volunteers over the years. Absolutely. First and foremost. We are strongly, as every year, we strongly emphasize agricultural in the area. And our fair is not a fair where you can come and ride rides like the Midway. Yeah. You may be able to ride a horse that's being led around by somebody. There's things for the kids to do. But we have, as you know, we have the antique tractor pull, which is a hugely popular event. We are increasing the light horse show this year. It's going to be 3 days rather than 2 days. Heavy horse, we are looking for a large turnout of heavy horse pullers, which is awesome to see that. And like I say, we have some plans on the go. In this country, it's difficult to add too many things because there's so many things happening on every weekend. Yeah. The same weekend as we have this fair, for one of the First Nations community has a fair or a rodeo. Yeah. So, you have to try to balance because you want to support them too. Yeah. And we're all part of the North Peace community, right? Yeah. So, but we have some ideas. We have some things planned, and there may be some things where the media would certainly be involved. maybe some kind of a test of ability. So
Sure.
we hope that maybe you could come out, but we haven't finalized the what that is, but there will be something coming out.
All right.
So I spoke to a lady this morning that's been around the fair, Ellen Fox, and her and her husband were our pioneers of the year a couple of years ago, and she's been around that fair for probably 60 years.
Wow.
And continued to come, and I spoke to her this morning. She's excited about this year again coming. It's a reunion. It's a reunion of folks who come. There's people that have family reunions. They come and they camp for the weekend, and they have family reunions, and the fair adds to that experience. So
Absolutely.
but no, we have some things. Yes.
Awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. Quick, what are the dates, Bruce?
August 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Excellent.
We are trying to let campers in a little early this year. We are returning this year with a music jamboree, which is going to be bigger and better. The people that are leading the jamboree, Johnny Clausen and Willie Siemens, are going to have more entertainment out there than we've had in the past. That's going to start on Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Obviously, be gospel music on Sunday. There'll be the church service on Sunday. We're hoping to once again institute the bus rides from the city and out. We did that a few years ago, and it was quite successful. Last year, because of COVID, we didn't have time. We didn't find out till the 3rd of July that we could do it.
Yeah.
So we couldn't arrange for that. We are hoping to add in a threshing demonstration this year. We haven't had one of those. There are different ones around the area about the same time, but we'd like to have one there. So, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Well, Bruce, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us today about the good and the not so good today, but it's going to be a wonderful celebration for the 75th anniversary. So thanks for stopping by.
Thank you very much for having me, and we hope to see you and all people at the North Peace Fall Fair.
Absolutely. I look forward to finding out what this test will be and how much I fail at it.
Painful.
Okay.
Okay.
Bruce Christensen with the North Peace Fall Fair Society.